Welcome back to Building Extraordinary Brands, the podcast where we dive into the art and science of creating standout brands and businesses. Today we have a special guest who's revolutionized the world of copywriting with her AI-driven approach. Amy Williamson is the AI-obsessed copywriter behind Damn Right. With 7 years experience in the industry, Amy's words can be found on supermarket shelves, product packaging, postage boxes, and even on deli walls. Her compelling copy also graces inboxes and web pages across the internet. Now Amy enlists AI as her creative sidekick, using it to enhance her own copy, her clients' copy, and even teaching others how to do the same through her group program Copy Savior. In short, Amy spends a lot of time learning, thinking, and testing out AI so you don't have to. In this episode, we're going to discuss her innovative use of AI in copywriting and how you as a business or person can leverage AI to create compelling and impactful brand messages. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
It's actually quite a pleasure to talk to someone in Australia at a regular hour. I've actually got some sunlight here in the background and a bit more fresh than usual. But enough about me. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you came into the world of copywriting, and then when did you become AI obsessed?
So my journey, I actually started with a product-based business. When I had my first kid, I kind of realized that eventually I would need to work around school, school holidays and all of that sort of stuff. And I actually worked in dentistry for a decade beforehand. Very different, right? Very different. And I just realized dentistry, surprisingly, it doesn't tend to be very family friendly as a job. They often will do late nights and weekends and that sort of thing, emergencies, runs late, that sort of thing. So after my first kid, when he was a baby, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to need a plan B here. So I started a product-based business, making little earrings, and very quickly realized I didn't enjoy the actual product side of it. I enjoyed writing the descriptions, the website copy, the product descriptions. At the time, I didn't realize that was a thing. I didn't know. I watched Mad Men, so I don't know how. And I was obsessed with Ash Ambroget, who is a very well-known copywriter in our space. I was obsessed. I used to read her blogs all the time. And then someone said to me oh, your copy on your website for this product-based business is amazing. I was like, oh, hang on. What's copy? And so I went down that rabbit hole, and it was like a light bulb moment of hang on, this is a thing, this is a job, this is an industry. People might actually pay me to write this for them. And so from there, I just, chucked the product-based business in the bin basically, and just really dove into copywriting. And I'm so glad I did, because I enjoy it so much.
What a shift. A light bulb moment when you come across copy. And I had the same thing with graphic design. I was mucking about in Photoshop and doing things, and my careers advisor told me about design as a career. I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. It just changes everything.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I was definitely I had the bootlegged Photoshop in high school. Creating absolutely horrible stuff, I'm sure.
Yes.
Hope it never sees the light of day again. And from there, in terms of AI, so when 3.5, when ChatGPT launched, basically, so that was a couple of years nearly now, it was actually another copywriter, Joel Kletke. He was on Twitter and he was sharing this, what he was doing with ChatGPT, basically. And it was just silly stuff. It was writing scripts and sort of stuff like that. But he's a very good copywriter and a very clever person. And what he was able to get out of it, it was 3.5. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was good enough. And it was getting these character voices and these well-known voices well enough that I thought, hang on, this is something that's not that it's going to come for copywriting, but I was like, this is something that, if nothing else, can be helpful for copywriters. But it's also something we need to be aware of, because if it gets better, that's when we could start to, be in a little bit of trouble. But yeah, it's because I saw what Joel was doing and the weight he was putting behind it, even though it was just a little fun side thing. I thought, this is something I need to actually explore. And so from there, it was okay, whenever I've got a client project on or my own stuff, I basically would just jump in and use it as basically my thinking assistant. Be like, I'm working on this particular line or this messaging strategy, and see what it was capable of producing. If it wasn't finished copy, maybe it's like the idea behind it, or maybe it's rewording in a slightly different voice, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, from there, I've become a little bit obsessed.
So what was he showing that got you intrigued?
Oh, I can't remember exactly. I should go back and try and find it, but then I'd have to log into Twitter. It was, I remember like scripts. I remember like, I don't know, it was like fictional characters and stuff like that, but it was ones that had defined enough voices or like writing styles to say like scripts in the particular director writing style or whatever it is. And as I said, definitely not perfect, but good enough that it was just like, oh, hang on, this isn't like, a lot of people are already dismissing this, but I think they're doing that a little bit prematurely, right? Yeah.
Well, you said ChatGPT 3.5 wasn't groundbreaking. I was like,
I mean, it was,
completely
but
disagree. I was like, my mind blew off, like the top of my head blew off when I saw this, and what was capable in a matter of seconds that used to take us hours. And that just like, that was one of those things where it's like the internet, right? When that came about and you saw that, it's like, wow, this is going to change things. And it was scary. But now I pretty much use it every day, and it does enhance the workflow and productivity, efficiency, effectiveness. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because I think I have a pretty good handle on things, but I want to tap into your insights and learn how you get about it. But before we get into like the real practical things, I just want to understand like how you see the role of AI, and just have a little bit of a chat about that, and I guess the benefits it brings to your work, and I guess the advantages of it for you, your clients, and so forth.
Yeah. So for me, I still definitely look at it as that assistant rather than a replacement of me. I would say it's like this extension of you, an extension of your brain. It can be both like an intern and a CEO almost. Like you see the stats around like CEOs, like majority of CEOs are like, yeah, it could replace me. It could do my job. Which probably says more about their job than anything else. But, you know,
scary.
yeah. I kind of look at it as both very new or fresh and very clever at the same time. It's just going to depend, on your prompt, on the context you did it, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't go to it expecting it to be this copy ATM where I can just like put a single prompt in and get that copy and paste ready copy, but at least not reliably. Sometimes, yeah. But for me, it's the benefits of it are it's going to help me with that thinking. It might make it faster for me to write. It's going to improve the quality of my copy from the ideas behind it, the messaging, the research, all that like really boring work that goes into preparing to write copy. That's really easy to skip over as well, particularly if you don't know that you're meant to be doing it. But then the actual end result as well, it really helps me get more creative because I'm not just relying on my own brain, which has its limits. Like we're all only human. And to expect, particularly if you work by yourself from home, it's, I've got a bunch of copywriter friends that I could reach out to all the time and just constantly pester and be like, hey, can you just have a look at this? And we still do that every now and then, but having something that I can ask for feedback in a specific way. And if it doesn't give feedback that I agree with, or that, maybe it hurts my feelings or something like that, and not, it's not personal. It's not personal. I'm not feeling like offended or anything. I'm just like, what do you know? You're an AI. But also gives really helpful feedback. Oh yeah, it absolutely knows more than me.
Yes.
Much more than me. It knows so much that it sometimes gets a little bit confused. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because you know a lot. I would get confused too. But yeah, it just every part of the copywriting process, AI can help me either do easier or do better, which that's for me amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. The better side of it. And I love that the perspective is that it's a tool to help you, right? Like it's a combination. Yeah. It's not just relying on AI, it's using it together.
Yes.
So with that said, let's talk about some like practical applications, how you actually improve copy or your client's copy.
Yeah.
Ready to unlock the future of brand strategy with AI-powered insights? Brand Builder is the only dedicated brand strategy platform built specifically for the next generation of brand builders. Imagine strategy processes that are intuitive, deeply insightful, and produce unique and effective strategies effortlessly for any business, with any audience, in any market. With a diverse array of strategy models, from brand strategy and marketing strategy to offer strategy and beyond, Brand Builder provides the structured path. Simply follow the steps, leverage AI-driven insights, and produce comprehensive guidelines and action plans for your clients and teams. With Brand Builder, strategy is both smart and simple. Expand your branding capabilities, enhance your services, and increase your revenue, all with a single platform. Start building smarter today with your free account at brandbuilder.ai. That's brandbuilder without the E.ai.
So for me, when I write copy, I really like to dig into the creative side of it. And so for me, that's often a lot of like wordplay, a lot of what we call stylistic devices or rhetorical devices, things like your puns, your metaphors, a bunch of other things. You see them a lot in like
I love my
actual
puns.
copy. Yeah, I love a good pun too. And so before AI, before ChatGPT, that basically meant on a copy project, I would get to the point where I was trying to make it sound better, and I would have a bunch of tabs open with things like thesauruses, rhyme zone, which has like words that sound like words that like near rhymes, all those sorts of things. Like it gets really nerdy really fast, and just be going down, and like idioms. Like, there would be so many tabs open on my actual computer and in my brain, trying to find the right words, the right rhymes, the right phrases to play on. And that took like a lot of time and a lot of mental energy. With AI, I can use it to really like speed up that process and to probably explore more. So if I'm still spending the same amount of time, I can go deeper, I can explore more options for it. And I can, come up with ideas that I wouldn't necessarily come up with on my own. Sometimes maybe the AI doesn't give me that perfect line, but it gets close enough, or it gives me some idea. So suddenly in my brain, the right line does pop up. That's a version of what it said, sort of like almost inspired by AI. And so for me, even when it's not giving me that exact line, it's like, you've inspired me and you've done it way quicker than me staring at all these different tabs. In terms of like actual, like a tangible example of that, so there was this wicker bag brand that I did some copy for, and they have a really like weird, quirky kind of voice. Like it's quite out there and odd. And they had these postcards that they wanted these like one-liners for that go in with the orders. And so the idea was they wanted something that similar to like the Kate Spade ones. So if you haven't seen those, they're like these really like upbeat, sort of like positive mantra, little phrases that they'll put on products and in packaging. But they wanted that really like odd twist on it. And honestly, like I'd already written the web copy, we'd done the messaging. I was like spent by this point, and it was kind of just like an extra add-on. And rather than tell the client, like, I've got no idea here, I'm like, I just have nothing to give, I was like, yeah, cool, I'll figure it out. Basically went into ChatGPT, said, here's the voice, here's the brand, here's the idea. Give me a bunch of, like, this wasn't even a huge prompt. It was basically like, give me a bunch of Kate Spade inspired one-liners with a really odd twist. And then from there, it gave me like 20, 30 of them. Not all great, of course, but some really good ones. And from there, I think it was just like a little bit of back and forth going like, maybe make it a bit more odd, or maybe use this specific theme or this specific animal. But one of them references Godzilla. It's amazing. But the ones like the client went with, I don't think I even edited. I basically gave the client a doc of like, here's like 50 different ones. Take your pick for whatever you want. And it was up from the client, but it was, ChatGPT helping me do it.
Yeah, I have so many questions, like follow-up questions about this.
Go for it.
Yeah, because I want to know like exactly what you're putting in, but also like, what are you sharing with the client? I also want to know like how you think about AI and copywriting, because like, is it devaluing things? Are people losing their jobs? Like I have a lot of follow-up questions, but we'll just do them in order. So I really want to understand what you're putting into like the AI program as an example. And I know you teach this in your group program. So what are your prompts or frameworks that you use to get better results from AI?
Yes. So In a perfect world, I have some great prompts that I can use, particularly starter prompts. For me, it's like that first when you're starting a convo or setting up a custom GPT or something like that. If you really want to get into it, that part's going to be the most important. And then I just expect to have a convo from there. In terms of those prompts, so like I kind of break it down into the instructions. So what I'm asking it to do specifically, the expertise or the role, of course, that I want it to take on, how I want it to think. And then most importantly is the context. Context is huge. So I think that's where a lot of people also go wrong, where they're not giving it enough or good enough context. That could be everything for copywriting. Like that could be info about your brand voice, examples of that brand voice, examples of how you don't want it to sound, which sometimes ChatGPT gets a bit confused with. So, you know, a bit of trial and error there.
It doesn't really like the not. It's just like, just
No.
tell me what to do.
Don't confuse me with what.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that context piece is huge for getting something decent out of it. And so for me, I have to remind myself as well when I just jump in and put in a one-line like question and get back something that I'm like, oh no. Also like the format of the response. Do I want it to just write the copy or am I just asking it to, because it will, like ChatGPT in particular, even when I'm like, I want to have a convo about this, I want to work through these steps. It'll be like, here's the final copy. I'm like, no. Like, let's just stop with the copy. Let's go back a step. But, you know, what do you want it to actually do? I love actually going to it and setting it up to either giving it like literally like a numbered process, like step 1, step 2, step 3, and saying, let's work through this step by step, which also helps it do the job better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just like, here's a 4-page prompt, go run it all, and then it does all those steps, including the final copy. And I'm sitting there going, oh, actually, like now I have to kind of unpick it and backtrack. For me, I would rather have control over it step by step as well.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds like a similar structure to what I use. Like you give it the context, you ask it to act in a certain way. So whether it be like professional in a certain area. So I often use act as a marketing professional, act as like an email marketing copywriter, for example, to give it a persona. And then you give it a task. I want you to do this. I often ask for the output. So it's like, I want it into split paragraphs or bullet point forms. And I find that gives a much better result, and then follow up with your improvements. I love number 3. Can you give me 10 more based on this? So it's like a combination of, getting the answers and then improving on it.
Yeah.
Have you add anything else to that?
Just that with that context, I think people can often go, but I don't know my voice, right? Like I know it when I see it, but I don't know it. Chuck the link into ChatGPT. If you've got a blog post, your website copy, whatever it is, if you've got a doc, upload that. But even if it's just a link, pop the link in and just ask it to analyze your voice in detail. You don't need some massive prompt. Just literally say, can you analyze this voice in detail? And then you can continue to have a convo with it to explore that further if you want. And that can be a really good place to start. If you've got nothing, at least do that so that you've got it in words that the AI understands. Because that's the other thing. It's like, well, I would say my voice is this, but maybe that particular AI model understands that, that type of voice, that voice, like those traits or tones or whatever, a little differently. And so it's like, well, how would it describe it? That can be a really good shortcut for getting that context, and particularly around voice, spot on.
Yeah. So a good example of this is the copy that I've written for this summit. So I've used ChatGPT for the paid version, and I gave it some prompts, input around the language you use. So often, rather than extraordinary, we spelt usually like extraordinary with the EX. I asked it to spell it with an X and then a hyphen, and then I gave it an input of 10 other words with the X. And I asked it to store that in the memory. So whenever you're going to use words like this, use these replacements, and then it would store that in the memory. I'm not sure if that works on 3.5, but it does on the latest version of 4, which is the paid version.
Yeah. I think most of the features are meant to be available on 3.5. I'm not sure. I have the paid one as well. So I have to log back into a free account to check.
Yep. So those are some techniques you can use to, upload in some of your documents, your blog post, to give it input around your voice, and then iterative feedback, and
Yes.
also giving it a persona and the output and the context. Is there anything else you would add onto that?
That's pretty much it. I mean, they're pretty broad categories. Like I said, like context and even instructions can cover a lot, like the output. I love a good table output, but depending on what I'm working on, I'm like, oh, give me a table and tell it specifically, like these columns specifically. Even with that, like I love when I set up like bots and stuff, like custom GPTs, I will actually tell it to like bold certain things so I can more easily find them in the table or whatever output it's giving. I feel like, am I missing something there with the, no, I think that's it. I mean, you can also get into, I've dabbled with like including a list of, criteria that it needs to meet and then constraints that it needs to avoid. But again, with those constraints, it's often a case of like, it would actually just be easier, or you get a better result to just double down on giving it more of what you want it to do, rephrase it to a positive if you can. So instead of saying like, don't do that, what do you want it to do instead? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you for sharing those practical tips. I want to talk about some of those other questions I asked. I got ahead of myself, but I guess it's around the future of AI and copywriting, because this amazing tools come along, and it's literally wiped out a lot of the bottom rung of a lot of industries. Even design, copywriting, like basic design work and illustrative work and so forth. So
yeah.
How do you see AI and copywriting working in the future, especially in like the brand?
Yeah, so it's definitely had an impact on the copywriting industry. And it's hard to tell because obviously we've had like recessions, that sort of thing as well, which always, like historically has not done good things for creative fields like ours. That aside, I think AI definitely has had an impact, particularly you the long run. Like a 3.5 could spit out a bunch of SEO keyword blog posts very quickly and easily and cheaply. So there goes that tier. And then I think you got to look at like, if I'm saying that you can use AI, maybe you're not one of the top copywriters, but you can use AI to help you write to a better level. It's almost like that there's more competition at each level, or the levels that are left as it goes up and up. Whether or not for copy, it's ever going to get to the point where it can fully replace the top copywriters. So I'm talking people who have like that deep understanding of like consumer psychology, conversion copy, and creativity. So they write something that works, that's, backed by research and data and psychology, but also sounds really good and really memorable. It's stuck in people's brains. Like that's your gold standard for copy. And I don't know if it'll ever really replace that. From the like ad agency side of things, I listened to a couple of podcasts with like ad agency copywriters, and they don't seem to think it'll come for them. But that, maybe it sounds harsh to say, I probably shouldn't say it, but if ChatGPT can write as well as you can right now, then you've got nothing left. Like why would they hire you if they can easily get it out of it? The other thing is like the other side of copy. People always look at like how it sounds and the actual words. So maybe it's doubling down on like messaging strategy and that psychology part, which AI can help with, but I don't know if it can make the final call on. So it really comes down for me, like I think the future is it just being more of that assistant role where it's helping at each stage, but you're that human in the loop, so to speak, where it's you're the one putting in the info, you're the one making the final call at each stage. Yeah. I don't know. It is a little bit scary as much as there's that possibility. I was actually watching, my 9-year-old wanted to watch on ABC. They had some like AI special on, and I was like, yeah, I'm in, because he saw like the promo for it, and it was talking like the hook was about like, could you tell like AI art from human art? And he was like, yeah, I could. And I was like, game on, let's go, let's watch this. And he couldn't. So that was fun. And neither could the majority of people. And this was like photography and painting. And so we watched that. But in it, they actually had like an artist who uses AI as like blends like AI generated hearts images, but like does their own thing with them. Like, I can't remember if it was like collages or paintings or whatever it was. I would, that to me, that's the future. That's the future I want to push for, because I don't want to be entirely replaced. But yeah, that's where I see it. What about you? Where do you see it going? Like,
Yeah,
for
I agree.
design?
The higher level tiers, I think the strategic thought and the nuances between understanding psychology and people and culture, like that can't be replaced. Especially, trends, right? There's something only humans can pick up in those patterns, and especially when it comes to location and nuances around that, and especially in the ad world and the branding world, you have to have a very sound foundation with like the strategic approach to the brand,
Yeah.
and coming up with a positioning statement or a tagline or something that's actually going to connect with the consumer. That can't be done by machines, or not very well. So that's what I think is going to excel. Like the people doing that are going to excel, but it does take a lot to get to that point, because you have to understand so many things. You have to understand marketing, business, and psychology, and the brand itself and how it's positioned in the marketplace. Like you have to understand all these things to get a better result. And even if you put that into a GPT, you're not going to get a creative result, in my opinion. Like let's say a tagline, like have a break, have a Kit Kat. That's like simple and brilliant. You're not going to have a GPT produce that. So, and make it work with the actual product and so forth. So I think that's what I think. It's like the top is always going to be there, and the people that excel in all those areas and can bring it all together, that's where it's really going to work. But yeah, like things like where you started writing copy for e-commerce pages and things, I don't think that's going to be like where the bread and butter is going to be anymore.
No. And so I think for me, I worry more about the up and comers in terms of, they talk about it a lot in like Hollywood in script writing and that, because that's how you get your really good, and same with copywriting. You've got to go through that to get it. That's like the pathway in. And so if we take that away, what happens? Like, I don't know. I don't have the answers. You just got to really love it, I guess, to really want to do it.
Well, I think that's what all the school systems are grappling with as well, because you can, get the answers from online if you want to, but are you going to learn? Probably not. And that's the decision that each individual has to make.
Yeah. With
really
like a school-aged child, it's something that I think about a lot in terms of like how slow education is to catch up, particularly in Australia. We'll usually wait for the US and then sluggishly follow along. And they're not prepared. They're not prepared at all. So what are they preparing them for? Like what workforce? I actually don't know. And so for me, I'm just like, my oldest particularly is very creative. And so I really focus in on, doing that. We'll use like, it was ages ago when DALL-E not first came out, but when it was like first on Bing, we would just sit there, and he actually asked, he was like, oh, can we do that again tomorrow? Where we sit down, we put in prompts of different styles of whatever he wants to draw or create or build in Lego. And so he uses that as his like inspiration piece, right? So really focusing on that with him.
Yeah, I've done something similar with my kids, like create a drawing to color in. I'm like, what do you want to draw? And it's like basketball. I'm like, tap that in, and now you have something to draw and print out. And like even this morning, he's like, he wanted to know how many days until Christmas. So he's like, ask Siri how many days till Christmas. And like, we didn't grow up with that access to information. It's like, you can get that in an instant. And he like yells into my phone. He doesn't pick it up because he doesn't recognize his voice. Like, but yeah, that's the day and age that they live in. So it's changing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amy. I'm going to just ask if you have any upcoming projects or any initiatives you want to share, events or anything else you want to share with your audience.
I finally just got my AI bot building course out there into the world. So it's called Build Your Own Blessed Bots. It's finally out there. Finally, a little bit delayed, but I've got it together. So that's probably the thing I'm focusing most on at the moment. Yeah.
And where can people connect with you, find that more information about that?
Yeah. So I'm Damnwrite, DAMNWRITE, like writing on all the things. Instagram, Threads are probably the two places I am hanging out the most. or Copy Savior, spelt the Australian way. So SAVIOUR. I need to stop naming brands I need to spell out.
Well, yeah, the U is a challenging one. I pretty much use the US spelling everywhere now because
my phone autocorrects. It's putting Z's in everywhere. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. We're good. I don't really, whatever.
Mine's kind of this
Let it
hybrid blend of both. It's like very confusing.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, it's damnright.com.
.au.
.au. Okay.
Yeah.
Damnright.com.au. All right, great. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your insights into AI and copywriting. And yeah, thank you.
It was fun. Thanks.
Building extraordinary brands.